Hey Ross World, my money makes money. Not too long ago, I did an interview with Jameson Smallwood, the host of Culture and Conversation. Now, the podcast, in the very beginning, he gives you the history of Tulsa Real Estate Fund and some other knowledge that is well to know, that you really want to know. But if you wanted to speed through and just hit an interview between me and him, where I give him my take on Tulsa Real Estate Fund, as well as wealth and my personal life, just go ahead and speed to 11:30 to 12 minutes on the tape. Culture and Conversations link is in the description of this video. Listen up, it's pretty good.
Culture and Conversations family, I'm your host Jameson Smallwood, and I'm about to make you part of the conversation. Hey, thank you guys for downloading, subscribing, listening to, and sharing Culture and Conversations with your family and friends. Everything you guys do on social media, through your podcast subscription application, it makes the show successful. So I wouldn't be here doing this without you listening and supporting the show in all the ways that you guys do. So thank you. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, swing over to iTunes before we get rocking and write me a 5-star review. That would really help the show. Just tell iTunes that, hey, you love Culture and Conversations, and here's why. So up next on Culture and Conversations, I've scored a good interview with Ray Ross of the YouTube channel Ross World. Ray is a YouTuber, and he has a channel on YouTube called Ross World, where he was discussing the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, and we're going to bring him on to talk to us about his journey, also about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, and some basics around investing. Up next on Culture and Conversations. Yes, I'm Jameson Smallwood, and this is Culture and Conversations. Once again, just thank you guys for all your continued support. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for all the things that you are doing to help make Culture and Conversations a success. So one of the things that came across my timeline on social media was the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. My friend Gloria, she mentioned it to me in a conversation that we were having on Facebook, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what was going on with it. So I just began to do some research and to take a look to see exactly what was going on. It is being spearheaded, the fund is being spearheaded by a gentleman named Jay Morrison. And apparently Jay has some prominence in the larger black community as being a financial guru, a real estate investment guru. Jay Morrison has made it his business to try and reproduce, according to his vision and his understanding, what we would call Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was a community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a neighborhood known as Greenwood. And one of the attributes of this neighborhood was that it was one of the most prominent concentrations of African American business in the United States during the early 20th century. Black Wall Street was burned down and leveled to the ground during the Tulsa race riot of 1921, in which the Oklahoma state government, with the assistance of Tulsa's white residents, massacred hundreds of black residents and razed the neighborhood within hours. So Black Wall Street was a place where African Americans were thriving under segregation, under Jim Crow. They had huge businesses for their area and their time. And here it was that the actual state government of Oklahoma leveled the neighborhood with the help of white residents, all simply because these black people had a successful business, or had successful businesses, I should say, and they were thriving. So Jay Morrison is tapping into the nostalgia, the sentimentality of the black community and how they somewhat deify Black Wall Street. And he is bringing the Tulsa Real Estate Fund as an attempt to try and recreate a community investment vehicle that would give people ownership of different properties that Tulsa Real Estate Fund would go out and purchase, and different communities that Tulsa Real Estate Fund will actually go out and invest in. So with that backdrop, I'm going to let this video play that's coming up next give you some detail about what the Tulsa Real Estate Fund actually is according to their website.
Many of our communities have experienced a type of economic erosion where many properties are left desolate, unsafe, or even vacant for extended periods of time, mainly due to practices such as redlining, mortgage discrimination, blockbusting, deindustrialization, and economic disinvestment from the public and private sector. In addition, studies show that vacant properties in a neighborhood are correlated to increased violence and criminal activity. The most common method of economic revitalization that occurs in most of these communities is called gentrification. This is where members of a more affluent community pool public and private resources in order to make investments into poorer areas, forcing some of the most economically vulnerable members to move away. In the end, the community loses its identity, culture, and history, while the problems of poverty, lack of economic resources, or quality education still exist for the displaced. Tulsa Real Estate Fund is an SEC-registered, Regulation A+ Tier 2 economic vehicle for urban communities to collectively pool their dollars and gain control over the revitalization of their own neighborhoods. Due to a new SEC regulation, for the first time, members of the community can invest as low as $500 into a real estate crowd fund and become part owners of all types of real estate investments, such as hotels, apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, or even large blocks of single or multifamily homes. Here's how it works. Tulsa Real Estate Fund will collect capital from a pool of socially conscious investors, then search for quality real estate investment opportunities in economically depressed neighborhoods, purchasing properties to be fixed up and either sold or held onto for rental income. As the properties make payments and or increase in value, the fund participants as co-owners of the portfolio of investments will receive an 8% preferred return and a 50-50 split of the remaining profits with the fund managers. In addition to receiving the return on their capital, the Tulsa Fund real estate investor will have had the opportunity to create jobs in their community, participate in neighborhood improvements, positively impact local public spending, all the while creating a new legacy of ownership and financial investment. We welcome you to explore this innovative 21st century economic solution.
So you may be wondering, why am I talking about Tulsa Real Estate Fund? Is this something that I'm advocating that we invest in as people? No, it's not. I am staying as far away from Tulsa Real Estate Fund as possible because I think it is using some marketing techniques that I'm not necessarily a fan of. One of the things that you'll notice when you start looking up information about Tulsa Real Estate Fund is that it is constantly inundating you with images of prosperity. And one of the problems when you start targeting people who are economically disadvantaged for whatever reason you want to ascribe that to, whether it's racism, whether it's the legacy of Jim Crow, whether it's the legacy of slavery in this country, or it could be just that they mismanaged their money. Whatever the reason is, when you start targeting people with images of success and affluence, and you oftentimes will cloud the actual quality and soundness of the investment opportunity. It preys upon people's desperation and their desire to have money and to do something to get themselves out of their economic situation. And I just don't like prosperity being preached, if you will, in any type of investment strategy. One thing about investing that you have to keep in mind is that investing is not an emotional decision. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that investing is not an emotional decision. Investing is about you looking at opportunities, weighing out the risk, and making decisions based on what you're comfortable with if you would lose all your money. So when you take your money and send it to a company who promises that they're going to take your money that you invest and make you wealthy, then that's really a problem. Sizable investments give you the ability to have true ownership and true returns on your money that are substantial. And if you have $500 and you're sending it to a fund that's promising you 8% preferred return, basically that means that if they make money, then they're going to give you 8%. But they're also going to take out of that 8% a management fee that you have to pay them for managing this portfolio of properties in this fund. So one of the things you can do if you really want to invest, I would suggest that you check out several different resources. One of the resources that I trust that I don't mind recommending is that you check out like clarkhoward.com. And Clark Howard would give you an explanation about how to do some simple investing for another $500. So if you take $1,000, you can go and buy an actual Vanguard mutual fund. I think it's actually a star fund is what they call it, but that's just the name of the fund. And that mutual fund will give you the access to the stock market if you really want to invest money, and you can do that. And that's something that doesn't hinge upon the false promises of prosperity and the sort of emotionalism that this marketing campaign of Tulsa Real Estate Fund has been playing to in the black community and the larger community of people who feel disenfranchised, who want to economically empower themselves. So with that said, I want you guys to hear the interview I've got up with Ray Ross of Ross World, and we're going to give you guys a chance to listen to what he thinks about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, and also hear an interesting story about a guy who rose out of poverty to get his life together, and now he's bringing his particular philosophy and his particular insights to the larger YouTube community and also to Culture and Conversations. Culture and Conversations family, I'd like to thank you guys for listening and downloading and subscribing. I have the privilege of sitting down and speaking with Ray Ross of Ross World on YouTube.com. Ray has his own YouTube channel called Ross World, and Ray caught my attention while I was doing some research and listening to some conversations and topics on entrepreneurship, on building wealth. And he has his channel, he has some content and videos that he had up about it, and I got a chance to listen to some of it, and I thought he would have a perspective that would be interesting to share with you guys. So let's welcome Ray Ross to the conversation. Ray, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, Jameson?
Hey, great, man. I'm doing good. Thank you for taking the time to obviously do this and speak with me and my audience, and taking some time to help me generate an episode here to share with them.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Cool. So, Ray, you told me that you're into a couple of different things, and you had your channel on YouTube, Ross World, reflects your different interests. The thing I had you come on to share and talk about is obviously some topics on black wealth and entrepreneurship. So let's kind of take it from the beginning. What piqued your interest in building wealth and entrepreneurship and investing? What got you into those topics of interest?
Well, first, I'm originally from Washington, D.C., Southeast, and growing up in the ghetto and poverty in the projects, I was poor. I recall a certain time when me and my mom, we lived on the street for a week, and even as I fast forward into the point where I was handling my own finances, which I wasn't really handling them, they were handling me, I didn't understand money. And I came to the brink of bankruptcy when I was actually going to file for it. But then I started to take classes about getting out of debt management, investing, savings, and also all sorts of securities to help me find a better way for myself. And that's what kind of stemmed some odd years later to Ross World, giving information back that I learned from prominent people. One of my mentors, he was a retired football player from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His name was Derek Goddard. He played back in the 80s. Okay. And he had a great deal of money. And I asked him, I said, how do you keep all this money if you don't play football no more? He said, wealth management. And that's what kind of got me into it.
Okay. Awesome. When you describe growing up poor, you said that you, at one point in time, you were almost on the streets with your mother. Help us kind of get a picture of that background, because I think that's oftentimes what shapes us is our background, those experiences. When you were a child, did you look out at your circumstance and did you see it as being normal, or did you always long for something better?
I would say at the time it was normal, because my mom and we moved quite a bit. And believe it or not, my generation, Generation X, during that time period, it was very common for people to move multiple times in their childhood in Southeast D.C., or rather this in D.C. period. And the only job I can remember my mom having is working at McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
That was the highest level of a profession that I believe that she had. I remember going from shelter to shelter, from family member house to family member house, and I remember even staying a week on the streets by cardboard boxes while we will walk a mile or two to go eat a couple of eggs just to get some food.
Wow. So that's real poverty there. That's a more difficult circumstance than I grew up in. I grew up in South Georgia, and it's very rural, agrarian society, economy. And, I had a 2-parent household, and they both worked hard, to take care of us. My dad, he is a business owner. He worked as a tradesman, being a carpenter. So, I kind of grew up in a 2-parent household, and we never had any of those experiences. But what I remember, Ray, was that there just wasn't any extra. You know what I mean? There was no extra in the household. There was no extra money. You know what I mean? So that was my experience. But with your experience, it sounds like you didn't even have the necessities that you needed growing up as a child.
Not at all.
Wow.
Not at all. What would help me to, as we say, make it out is football. So I played for my high school team, and I got noticed because I made the All-Star team the 11th grade year that we actually went to the Turkey Bowl. That's our little local championship.
Okay.
And I got a full ride to West Virginia Wesleyan College, where I went from there, and I didn't even graduate it. I joined the military for a couple of years with the United States Marine Corps, which helped me finish my degree.
Okay. And what position did you play when you played football?
Well, in high school, I played, in high school, you play everything. I played running back, tight end, all the special teams, defensive end, and also outside linebacker. And granted, I was only 5'11", 185, 190.
Okay. Yeah, that's usually how it works out in high school. If you're an athlete, they'll put you everywhere, because you're able to make plays and do things. But for you went to college, and then you transitioned into the military, and then you finished up your degree. You described that, you went through basically a process of rehabbing your finances. What would you say the one thing is that stands out to you most as you remember yourself from those early days that you would say would be the thing that made you really bad with money? Was it just that you didn't have any experience with it, seeing it managed well in your family? Or was there something else that you were doing that was contributing to your behavior with money that you found that you didn't like and that you wanted to correct?
I didn't understand money. So The first thing is, the only thing I knew is I get a job, I get money. And then when I went to college, I remember this was kind of started a snowball effect, or better yet, an avalanche of debt, is when I received a letter in the mail from Discover Card. And they sent me a letter and say, hey, you just sign this up and we're going to give you $5,000 just using this card. I'm like, oh, man, this is great.
There it goes.
$5,000, and I can just pay you like $35 a month. I'm not looking at the interest rate. I'm not looking at anything. I know I got $5,000, and let me tell you.
Ball out.
I used that $5,000 probably within 2 weeks. I threw a party. I rented a car. I got catering service, and I was a man for about 2 weeks. And when that money was gone, so was the people who's been in my corner.
That's it. You sound like me when I got credit for the first time too, man. I never forget it was a Christmas holiday, and I was going to the mall, man, and they gave me I think they gave me $300 at Macy's. They gave me another $300 at JCPenney, or $200 or something at JCPenney. And I bought Christmas gifts for everybody. And then I never forget, I went to K Jewelers, and I'm like, buying. I applied for credit at K Jewelers, and they gave me I think it was $3,100 or something like that. And I'm like, now I'm buying girlfriends, diamonds and all this crazy stuff, man. It was insane, man. The best I can describe it, Ray, is it's like being on drugs for the first time, man. Like you getting hooked on drugs. Like it's just like that, man.
Oh, definitely a euphorial feeling, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you just start going through that high, man, and now you're chasing it because now you want more credit, but it's just like drugs too, where there's always that life consequence that comes from that, and so that's a great story, man, about you threw a party and everybody was there, and then all of a sudden they disappeared when the money was gone, But let me ask you this as we kind of transition our conversation a little bit. So we got your background. What was something specific that you came across that you read that you can share with my listeners that helped you shape your financial perspective and begin to help you build a way out of that debt and that bankruptcy that you almost went into?
I don't know if it was something I read. I believe it was something I noticed.
Okay.
And what I noticed is that, I grew up in a black neighborhood, black community, and as I looked around, we were all doing badly. But take, for instance, if white people live across the street, I would look across the street and see them all happy-go-lucky, living a great life, traveling the world, living in nice houses, driving nice cars. And granted, I know that's not all white people, but the percentage of them are higher than we are. And I was like, okay, how can I not be like them, but get like them? Like, I want to live a nice life. I don't want to live in a roach-infested neighborhood. I don't want to live where, people are essentially robbing each other in the same low and poverty neighborhood to get by. I want something better. And that doesn't mean, hey, I want to move to a white neighborhood. No, I want to move to a good neighborhood. I don't care what color it is, but I need to get out of here. And I think by noticing that, first and foremost, I had to take charge of my life and what I want to do with that. And the only way you're going to take charge of your life is, first of all, where are you hurting at? And for me, it was my finances, right? And also my stinking thinking. And I had to think about, okay, this is that I owe somebody money. So, you had to understand credit. You had to understand credit score. You have to understand all those things in order to make it out because, hey, you don't have to know science. Granted, you may not even know how to learn how to read, but if you know money, you can make it out the situation you're in. That's just my belief.
Okay. Now let's talk about that. That's a great segue into one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of black wealth. You had a great observation there. You said that I looked at the white people around me who were happy-go-lucky. They were financially doing better, and you didn't necessarily want to be white, which that's a pretty smart perception in terms of you didn't associate success with whiteness. You just noticed that as white people, they had success in terms of the finances compared to the black people that you were around. So you didn't want to be white. You just wanted to emulate the success they had with money. And then you said, okay, I got to take charge of my life and I got to, do the work to get rid of, you said, that stinking thinking. So with that perspective and that awareness that you had of the situation around you, Ray, is now what I'm curious about is, there are people, there's two camps out there, and I think this is where we can talk about black wealth a little bit. What I've discovered is, there's a camp out there that says, black people, we have all these systemic disadvantages. We have all these issues where we can't, overcome the history of slavery. We've been locked out of wealth. There's all these great statistics and, accurate statistics that portray just how bad things are in black America when it comes to finances and wealth and legacy of wealth in our culture. And there are people who don't believe we can overcome those things. There are people who think that we need, initiatives from the government. We need radical, legislative reforms such as like maybe reparations. So you got that camp. Now the camp I'm in is that I'm more of a bootstrapper. That's what I got called. I've been called by some friends. I believe in taking accountability for my life. I believe in leveraging the resources that I have available to me to try to begin to build economically and empower myself through those means I have, my own personal spending power, that kind of thing. So with those two polar perspectives, where do you necessarily fit into that equation? It sounds like I may call you correctly a bootstrapper according to what my friends will call you, Do you fit into that category,
Well, truthfully, I don't know, but I'll say this.
Okay.
That when I was in the Marine Corps, I met three guys, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. These guys could rap, right? And that was the big thing. Every time we would look at the TV screen, is everyone flashing money and gold? And granted, they're still doing that today. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I said, well, I can't rap, but I can be a manager. And I didn't know what a manager does. The only thing I know, hey, give me your mixtape. Let me run up to New York, Hot 95. Let me see if I can get in the door and play your stuff on the radio. Now, granted, I went up to New York probably over 40 times, They never played their stuff, but I did get them play in a local club. So that was kind of an interest of me trying to be an entrepreneur. Now, granted, if I dial back a little bit to hone in on your question, first thing, I wanted to understand the percentage and how the U.S. is actually ran. So off the top, U.S. supposedly anywhere between 12 to 13% black, 76 or 75% white, and then you got Asians at 8%. You have Hispanics at 16%. Now, we focus just on the black and white. Now, you always hear this term, black spending power is at $1.2 trillion, right?
Sure.
And what they mean is that's accumulation of, income revenue as well as debt, okay? The amount of debt we can actually use to use or spend or consume however you want to use it.
Sure.
Now, out of all of that, black wealth only account for 4% of the top households in America. So if you take 120 million households in America, that's roughly the number. 83 million of them are white, 14 million of them are black. 1.2 million of those households are in the 1%. And out of that 1%, 96% are white, which is about 1.1 million. And then only 1.4% are black, which is about 16,000. So it's a huge wealth gap in the percentages. See, I don't like to do hard numbers.
Sure.
Because people do hard numbers and they get lost in the math, because you need to understand. Mm-hmm. When they say we're a minority, people are like, oh, I'm not a minority because, there's a majority of black people around the world. No, we're talking about the United States of America.
Exactly.
We are a minority. We are third. Hispanics outnumber us anywhere from 3 to 4% in population.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't even know this information. But they're kind of like, I remember on my Tulsa video, I said black and brown people, and they beat me up about that. It was like, oh, Mexicans and brown people, why you're not just concentrating on black? Just because they don't raise a hand. Now, granted, I see them marching with us sometimes.
Sure.
And maybe it's not in large numbers, but I'm not going to do what you want me to do. Okay. That's just my thing is that if I have a Hispanic brother walking with me, then when I do a video and it relates to something on that magnitude, then I'm going to mention it.
Sure.
See, I'm a realist and I'm a truth teller. Mm-hmm. So your reality, maybe Milwaukee or LA, California, is probably very separate. I don't know. But my reality is that these black and brown people in Washington, D.C., we march together, we fight together.
Okay.
It just depends.
Yeah, exactly. So, let me kind of come back and come back through there and I mean, make my question a little bit more pointed, because I kind of got lost rambling myself around the question. What I'm trying to get at is, with your philosophy, on taking accountability for your life, what are some things that you believe are detrimental behaviors to generating wealth and growing wealth? And what can a person do who doesn't have a lot of wealth around them, to begin to take some basic steps to correcting issues in their life? I mean, I have a blueprint that people they kind of dismiss sometimes, but I'm kind of curious about what your blueprint would be to help somebody to get out of similar situations like you were in.
Definitely. The first two steps, in my opinion, is understanding debt and credit.
Okay.
Those are the hallmark of finances, like not owing anyone.
Sure.
Now, granted, I like Dave Ramsey, but me and him disagree on some things. But the whole debt issue is the hallmark, is the core of how you get to a better place. It doesn't matter if you work a blue collar or white collar, Walmart, Wendy's, or Fortune 500 company. It doesn't matter. You have to understand debt, and you have to understand credit. You have to understand how to get out of debt, and you have to understand how to continue to raise your credit score or maintain your credit score.
Yeah. Now, with credit, because Dave, I know what you're talking about with Dave. He has a philosophy of being like completely debt free. But you talked about knowing your credit score and maintaining it, or at least raising your credit score. I think that's important because in the short term, for most consumers, what happens is when you have a lower credit score, it just costs you more. It costs you more to take advantage of consumer credit in your life. And by consumer credit, I typically mean by purchasing furniture, buying a car, and truth be told, even buying a house. If you get to that level of wealth, where you want to buy a house, your credit score is basically going to dictate, legally speaking, and according to your credit worthiness, based on your score, how much it's going to cost you to get money to do certain things in the economy, outside of your income. So, I can see why improving your credit score is a great way in the interim to begin to dig your way out of debt and dig your way out of these toxic situations financially, because you have to overcome the cost of accessing capital in the economy. And the best way to do that is to have a great credit score, so it's really cheap to get money to do certain things with.
Exactly.
So, let's talk a little bit deeper here, Ray, as we transition also our conversation into the thing that kind of caught my ear with that you talked about on your channel, the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. One of the things that is prevalent in our culture as African Americans and Black folk is that we know that we don't have access to wealth the way that other national or other races do. You gave good statistics about the gap and the disparity between wealth ownership in the top 1%, and how much of that is made up of white Americans versus African Americans. One of the things that I think that I always deal with when I have these kind of conversations with my guests is that, we are so aspirational because we don't have anything. I think that's part of the psychology that's at work in our culture. Like you said, people throwing money around in these music videos, and I'm going to the strip club and I make it rain, or I got, all of this kind of imagery that we have in our culture, and it comes back to simply wanting to not be broke. It comes
basically.
Yeah, it comes back to that. So, when I see things like the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, the first thing is I don't have a problem with the marketing, right? And this is just me speaking as someone on the outside looking in at the fund. I don't have a problem necessarily with the name, because I understand what they're doing. They're doing an homage to Black Wall Street out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was a famous settlement or a famous district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where basically black minorities had gotten together and they had an active, thriving economy, and it's always used as sort of a historical, example and a benchmark for what we want to aspire to in the contemporary economy. Although people typically leave out some things like segregation and why segregation made that possible, but So the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is paying, is kind of, trying to tap into some of that nostalgia, and at least with the marketing. So, can you give my listeners kind of a brief overview of what the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is, and, sort of so we can kind of get into that piece of the conversation?
Sure. So the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is the first American, African American crowdfunding platform dealing with real estate, and they're basically going to, go into communities. Now, from my knowledge, they're going to be Black communities or properties that I guess Black communities are in the area, and that's hotels, apartments, schools, hospitals, etc. Now, the IPO just released on June 1st of this year, and the first initial investment has to be $500, which that's actually common. Okay, if you go with Wealthfront, that's $500, which is an investment app, and then you also have another real estate, which is a REIT through Rich Uncles. The minimum investment is $500 as well. But one thing that is different with Tulsa is that even though the initial deposit is $500 or the minimum is $500, there is a $25.50 fee that's associated per investment. So when you start off your investment at $500, you have to pay $25.50. If you say, well, I'm gonna throw another $500 in there, you'll have to pay another $25.50.
Okay.
Now the first year that you put $500 in your fund, that 12-month period is what they call the lockup period.
Okay.
So you can't withdraw any money and you won't make any money.
Okay.
Not until an anniversary of a year of you putting the money in there. So if you were to put money in there, say for instance, June 1st of this year, then you won't start seeing returns until June 1st or June 2nd of next year. Now, their goal is to hopefully that the fund returns 30% and that they're going to give investors 8%, and then the remaining 22% is going to be a split between the managers and the crowdfunding source.
Okay.
So, no, those are just the numbers. But here's the thing that I found out. Too, which I really need to really dig deep. Now, you may get an 8% return, but I believe I saw somewhere there's a 5.5% management fee. So you only actually net out 2.5%.
Oh.
So, yeah, so it's not even 8%. So it's only 2.5. Now, once again, I'm still doing just a little bit research on it, and I don't want to knock the fund down because I have a lot of traffic ever since, Tulsa became hot. Now, my video, this is last year. I did this video, I believe, June 17th, June 6th or 7th of 2017. And now I'm getting more traffic because it became public and people are just searching for information on this thing. And so I'm getting comments left and right. I'm getting beat up about, you said backed by the SEC and you didn't say registered by the SEC. Okay, yeah, I got it. I know what the SEC does, okay?
Yeah.
It's used for the purpose of protecting investors from dangerous and illegal financial practices, whether it be fraud. They want companies to disclose their financial information so you know that it's real, essentially. So I got that. So I'm going to do a video and probably apologize. I don't know. But, hey, they can hug them in the words. But that's pretty much the fun. And like I said, they're really honing in on building black communities and making a profit from it. And if anyone wants to know, yes, anyone can actually contribute, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, green, purple, who knows? So, I mean, you can do it all.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you brought up there that I want to kind of touch on, Ray, is that, with this fund, they are making some claims that I think we need to maybe press to people, press on so that we help the audience understand. So when they talk about like an 8% return on your investment, that's an optimistic optimistic outlook. Because they don't have okay, let me kind of slow down and stop talking ahead of myself, because I know you understand what I'm about to say, but I want to make sure the audience comes along with us. So when you start talking about investing, the first thing you want to look at with an investment is what they call a prospectus. A prospectus, I believe that's like Latin for prospect, but basically the idea with a prospectus is that it shows you over time how has this investment actually performed. So for instance, like if you bought a mutual fund, and a mutual fund is, just a collection of stocks that you can basically buy pieces of, and that's enough of a definition for people to understand what I'm saying. That fund has existed, let's say, since 2010. So the prospectus, when you buy that mutual fund, the prospectus will show you that since 2010, this is what the return on investment has been for a certain amount of money. So they usually use like $1,000. So they'll say, okay, given $1,000, this is what you would have earned, if you had made an initial investment at the beginning of the life of the fund, and this is what it yields out, yearly. So when you have something like the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, that's a brand new fund, you don't have a prospectus. So what they're doing is they're giving you what they think might happen if everything works out according to their plan. And
True, but
go ahead. I'm
that's
sorry.
truly any investment, though. That's truly any investment. The only thing they can do is give you projections.
Exactly.
And since this is the first African American one, the initial people are taking a large risk. Now, people ask me on my channel, they ask, have you invested yet? And I say no. That is the honest to God truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to invest in it yet. I'm going to wait and see how it does the first year.
To build up some data.
That will let me know to invest in or not. Because at the end of the day, well, you don't want to generate, black wealth. I don't get into that conversation. I just get into the conversation of making money.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, it's kind of a two-way street, because you say, well, if it's all about making money, you don't care about black people, you don't care about the black community. The only answer I have to that is, I don't want to lose $500. Now, granted, I can lose $500 in the stock market, right? If I sell stocks that are not performing well.
Okay.
But with the way I invest, I'm up $1,000 this year, which is roughly about 20%, which is not that much. But nonetheless, I'm a person who I believe wealth is slowly grows over time.
That's a good point.
You do your analytical research, you research. I don't just research the company. I research the CEOs. And that's another thing I wanted to say. Now, Jay Morrison's name is all over this. And as I did my research, the thing that kept coming up was, we have, me and my team, or the group of investors or people we have in our corner, we have over 100 years of experience. Okay, cool. Who are these people?
Exactly.
Name these people on the website, because I want to do checks on them just like I do a white business.
Exactly.
So to me, we try to put color into everything, and I love it. I want us to build from the grassroots up. But at the same time, me putting my money to anything, me taking food off my table, I have to do my due diligence before I put my money for it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I liked about your video, Ray. Even though, like you said, you took a little heat for, some of how you stated certain things about the SEC, which, people are sensitive on the internet. So, when you told me that, then that totally took that question off my list of questions I had for you, about that. But what you said in the video that made a lot of sense was that you're like, hey, do the research. And I think that's the second piece of advice I want to give people about investing in general is that you need to know something about what you're putting your money into. And like you said, with any investment, they're going to give you projections about what they're thinking are going to happen. And while I always tell people that even with a prospectus of, years worth of data showing you how something has performed, that doesn't guarantee future returns. That's a phrase you'll hear all the time with investing, is that past performance does not guarantee future returns. However, it gives you an indication that if things remain fairly consistent in the market, then you should see a certain behavior from this fund, unless there's some extenuating circumstances that you can't foresee anyway. But, to your point, I think that's one of the things about us on our quest for wealth as a community and as a race, is that we have got to stop using, this idea of black excellence and black wealth as like this sort of way of glossing over the details. Like, I want people to be smart and use the same tools that you would use if you were investing in a non-black fund, or if you're going to invest in a black fund, because at the end of the day, when you don't have a lot of wealth as people, you've got to be careful about where you invest and how you invest, because you can't tolerate the losses that other people can tolerate who have way more wealth, So, I mean, I think go ahead. I'm sorry, Ray.
Too. Oh, no problem. Here's the thing, too. On their website, they ask, they have, answering questions. Well, I forgot what you call it, FAQs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions was, can I take my money out of the fund? And here's the response. It says, Treff will use its best efforts to honor requests for a return of capital subject to, among other things, the company's then available cash flow, financial condition, and approval by the manager. So basically saying, hey, man, I throw my money in there after this 12-month lockup period. Can I get my money back? And I want to read it again. Treff will use its best efforts to honor requests for a return of capital. But it depends on the company's then available cash flow, financial condition, and the approval of by some manager. So for some people, that's a huge red flag. Whoa.
Exactly.
Best efforts. For me, it's called investing.
Yeah.
It's called investing because, hey, you're putting your money into this investment account, and it's a risk. It's volatile. So very quickly, this is how I tell people to diversify their portfolio.
Sure.
First, invest in stocks on the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, from everywhere, from American companies, from Chinese companies, from all around the world. Now, if you want to do Forex trading, then I'll let you do that. I don't talk about Forex trading. It's very, very risky.
I understand.
But you can get Chinese stocks like Alibaba or IQ on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ.
Sure.
But you take individual stocks, you take index funds, you take ETFs, and you take bonds.
Mm-hmm.
That is a well-diversified portfolio because the bonds and the ETFs and index are like hedging your individual stocks in order for you to maintain growth, or if you take a hit, you'll still get some sort of return. So when it comes to something that is so new, so brand new, my way of investing hurts my thinking on it, right? Because I can say, well, let me just go ahead and drop $500 in there to help this fund take off.
Mm-hmm.
But my mind says, well, this hasn't been vetted yet. Even though it's registered with the SEC and that all the documents, look legitimate, I still want some history.
Exactly.
Right? When I look at stocks, I look at the RSI, which is the relative strength index. I look at ZACs, which is, the little ones that say buy, sell, hold, things of that nature. I look at and I look at the trend from the first week to 5 years out. How has it fluctuated?
Mm-hmm.
I look at the EPS, the earnings per share. What are the dividend rates? I do a great deal of research, but I take my time. I take one stock and I do some research, then so on and so forth. So when it comes to this, the language for me is investing language. But at the same time, if I look at it with a carnal mind, it's a red flag when you say you're going to use your best efforts to honor my request of giving my money back. But for the common man and for, the black community, they're like, hold up. So if I put my money here, you can get my money back. And at the same time, you have to understand this is a form of investing.
Exactly. And with investing, you have to you have to measure your tolerance to risk. And I think that's what you're talking about, Ray, with the language of investing that they're using. There's no guarantee that you can get your money back. I don't care what I don't care what funds you put money into. I told my father this as he was kind of curious about doing some investing, because he comes from a saving perspective where he used to bank to generate wealth, but the banks have obviously stopped giving out interest, so his money isn't performing the way he wants it to. So, but I told him the same thing you said. You have to be prepared for risk, and with risk, it's all about how much can you take. And, the best way I can categorize the Tulsa real estate fund based on what I know about investing in general, and, even based on your perspective, Ray, that you just shared, is that it is risky. It is risky. So, there's some other things too that I'm going to point to just, briefly from just doing some basic, Googling and looking at certain things, on their, social media and stuff. The first thing is that, if you basically are promoting something, make sure people are being honest in what they're promoting. So I've seen people posting on Instagram these sort of these crudely photoshopped certificates of share certificates or whatever, like where you've bought into the fund and you got some shares of the fund or whatever. I've seen people post that on social media as if they've been buying funds, but you can clearly see somebody just typed in maybe Paint, Microsoft Paint, some lettering on it.
Wow.
That's a bit of a red flag for me, because that feels like propaganda. That doesn't feel like information.
Exactly.
And then also, some of the marketing has drawn, a little bit of heat in that, it does all this sort of aspirational portrayal of people, like the group or whatever who they've got people modeling, really nice suits, and they're standing around like this mansion, and, it's designed to send this image of wealth. But when you buy investments, all the investments I've ever bought, I've never seen any of that kind of marketing being done. The only thing they do is they show you the performance of what has happened in the past.
Statistics,
it's exactly the statistics, the numbers like you were talking about, and they give you all of that analytical information for you to make a decision. So, while this could be successful, and I can't say it won't be successful, and but there's clearly risk, because the reason there's risk is because you don't have a lot of great information around it yet. But I think in time, I think that's what, that's the opportunity they have as investors. They can prove us all wrong. They can say, you know what, this wasn't a risky investment. We knew what we were doing, and we made millions of dollars doing this, if not billions. And you guys are late to the party, but that's fine, right? I just want my listeners to understand that don't get lost in the hype around something just because they say black wealth or they use certain code words. You got to treat it just like anything else, especially when you're talking about money, because unless you know exactly what you're putting your money into and how it has performed, or have as much information about it, you're going to run into some troubles later on. You may be shocked at what happens with the investment.
That's absolutely true. Now, the guy who's backing it, who is Jay Morrison, he's a big name. A lot of people, he's a household name when it comes to real estate, and he knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think that will help generate it and bolster it out just a little bit more. And see, my thing is that I don't know how much people read, right?
Sure.
Especially my own kind. But I know me, I do quite a bit of reading. And I would say, if you don't know anything about how money and or, black community or blacks play a role with money, definitely check out Claude Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth.
Okay.
And then he has another book called Powernomics. Now, in Black Labor, White Wealth, he talks about how slavery and Jim Crow used black labor to construct a superpower nation. Mm-hmm. And in that book, it shows you how black people were socially engineered into the lowest level of a real life monopoly game, which of course we're not playing, but we always lose. And this is how America has gotten its wealth. Mm-hmm. And then the cool thing about Powernomics, he details a 5-year plan to make black Americans a prosperous and empowered race so we can be self-sufficient. And the reason why they even started the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is kind of starting, back in the day, Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Exactly.
Now, when that was booming, they even had white customers coming, and they were generating their own wealth. They were circling money inside the neighborhood, just like the Jews, mm-hmm. and just like some prominent white neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Well, what did white racist people had to do? I said, hold up, all these blacks are getting all this money? Oh, no, hell no. Mm-hmm. They started dropping bombs. It was the first time a U.S. city was ever bombed, and it was from their own people just because they were blacks making money.
Yeah. And I think that's what obviously they're paying, they're kind of hearkening back to with the name of the fund, Tulsa Real Estate Fund. And,
exactly.
And one of the reasons why that model in Tulsa, Oklahoma was working is because, like you described, the racism in the country through segregation and Jim Crow and all these factors basically forced African Americans to become insulated. So if a community was going to, the only people that you could do business with as black people was other black people. Other companies, they wouldn't service you that way. And if you did go to, and you could patronize them, but you couldn't actually have them patronize you. So in that exactly. environment, they created, like you said, this thriving economy that people often talk about and cite in history books and make mention of. But to disrupt it, what happened? Racism took over, and like you said, it was bombed and destroyed by angry white people who resented what that city or that community was doing. So, we just have to know our history, and, the history helps us, to your point, Ray, put it into perspective what we're trying to do. So I want to definitely thank you, man, for talking about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund and sharing that perspective. I mean, I got a lot more questions for you, man, but I don't want to burn you out with on this particular interview that we have.
Oh, I'm open, man. If you got questions.
Cool. Well, let me touch on a few more of these then. So you talked about your approach to investment. You talk about looking at the research and doing the data and seeing what you come away with and see if it warrants an investment, so what are some of the basics of investment? How can people start investing in simply like, okay, I've got a couple $1,000 that I've got saved up and I want to invest, is that person even a candidate for investing, or is that something that?
Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, take, for instance, there has been a whole new wave of millennial investing. That's what I call it. And what I mean by that is they have come up with numerous of apps, and I'll just name a few that I think that will be great starters for anyone.
Okay.
Take, for instance, one of my favorite is Stash Invest.
Okay.
Stash Invest is an app that you only need $5 in order to actually start investing. And they have made funds that they put together what they call micro or fractional investing. So say, for instance, a fund, and they put all these little stocks within this one fund, like you have Google, you have Amazon, and they say, okay, well, this fund is $138 per stock or per fund. But you can but you can invest $5 or per month or just one time, or you can invest $138 what the fund actually is.
Okay.
And that's the cool thing about Stash. And Stash has other segments like Stash Retire, where you can do IRA, whether it be traditional or Roth. And then the first month is free. And then every month after that is only $1 until you reach 5,000. Then after 5,000, they charge you 0.25%, which is really still a minuscule amount to charge you to manage your investments. And that's one I absolutely love. And I have a link on the bottom of my videos, which you can go in and it'll give you $5 to even start off with. Another one that is pretty hot right now is Robinhood. Okay. Robinhood, they allow you to invest in individual stocks, ETFs, and index funds, but it's not, whatever the price is, that's what you pay. Now, Robinhood itself is a total free commission app. So when I used to invest with Capital One, if I bought one stock or I bought 100 stock, I had to pay a commission price.
Sure.
That commission price was $6.95. So if I bought $3 stock from Plug Energy, I would have to pay $6.95, and the stock is only $3. So what Robinhood has done is took out the brick and mortar and that's what all these apps are doing. They're called robo investing, because they're letting a certain algorithm help you manage your money through statistic and math, all those good things.
Sure.
But at the same time, they don't have a brick and mortar like your Morgan and Stanley and your some other huge investment companies. I lost track of thought there, but these are great apps that you don't have to pay no money or much money. And here's another thing with Robinhood. Once again, I have a link on the bottom of my videos.
Okay.
Once you sign up for Robinhood, you get a free stock, and I get a free stock. Now, chances are the stock is only like $3 or $4 or $5, but they're giving you a free stock, which is a small piece of a company, and you don't have to pay for the commission price. And what I like about it is, whether you're doing index funds or ETFs, now this is not micro or fractional investing. You have to pay that particular price. That's the stock itself. Then you also have Acorns. Acorns.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of Acorns, but Acorns is pretty cool. It's not like Stash where you can actually see the stocks that you are investing in, but it does help you to understand like the degree of difficulties, because I think one of them are conservative, moderately aggressive, so on and so forth. And they tell you, okay, you are investing in small caps, large caps, these bonds, these particular funds, and they give you examples, whereas those stash is so freaking transparent, it's crazy. Like, they tell you what stocks you're investing in, the percentage you're investing in, and the performance it has been going, and even how many stashers, that's what they call people who use their app, how many stashers are actually investing in the fund that you are in. So that's this. You got Stash, Acorns, and Robinhood. And then I also invest with Wealthfront, which was that $500 minimum, which I use that for personal investment. Now, you got all sorts of investments. You got personal investment, you got RRAs, you got 401ks, you got 403bs. There's so many things that you can do, but I would definitely say if this is your first time and you have a couple of thousand, you don't know nothing about investing, stay clean to ETFs and index funds, whether it be Robinhood or Stash. And the ones I like when you're going to buy the fund itself, like ticker for Vanguard. I love Vanguard. They got VTI, which is the Vanguard S&P 500 fund.
Exactly.
You have VOO. Yeah, you can pay for those outright through Robinhood without a price, or you just want to do micro share investing through Stash. I believe those are great ways to start building wealth slowly, either for the next 10 years or into your retirement.
Wow. Man, Ray, that is a great place to wrap up the conversation right there, man. I think, man, no, I mean, I think your YouTube channel is a wealth of knowledge. Let me give you an opportunity to make sure that you highlight your content and where people can reach out to you, just so that they know exactly where to find you on the web.
Not a problem. So you guys can reach me at www.youtube.com/C/Ross World, no spaces. Once again, that's www.youtube.com/C/Ross World, no spaces. And if anyone needs to reach me, I have my email listed in the description, as well as a lot of information with the apps and investment tools in the bottom of the description of our videos.
Great. And what we'll do also, Ray, is we will definitely have links over to Ross World, so on the show notes, so that people can find it easy and get linked over to you, man, and check out your page. I would highly advise people to go take a look at it. One of the things I think you made clear, just like I try to make clear on my podcast, is that even though we're both African American guys, we speak from our cultural perspective, but we don't just speak to our cultural perspective. So the information we provide is applicable to anyone. We speak from our frame of reference in the culture as Black people, but this isn't your channel's on a Black podcast or a Black YouTube channel, and it's not. And my podcast is not a Black podcast, so it's just a podcast and a YouTube channel about Black guys. So that's what I always tell people. So
Exactly.
So yeah, man, Ray, I thank you for obviously making time to chat with my audience and chat with me. And I appreciate you stopping by and being a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Jemison, for the opportunity, for being on Culture and Conversations. It's been a pleasure. I thank you very much.
Thank you to Ray Ross of the YouTube channel, Ross World. Hey guys, swing by YouTube and let Ray know that you heard about him on Culture and Conversations. Just go to youtube.com and search Ross World and you will find his channel. Well, with that said, we've come to the end of our show. If you want to stay in touch with Culture and Conversations, you can do so on Facebook. Culture and Conversations is the Facebook page. If you want to send me an email, cultureandconversations@gmail.com. And if you have Instagram and you want to reach out on Instagram, Culture and Conversations is the Instagram page. We have been having a great time with Culture and Conversations. I've introduced a new show, Small Bites. Be sure to check out episode 1 of Small Bites on Culture and Conversations. Also, Matinee Myths and I have tag teamed to come up with a new podcast show, Matinee Conversations. My good friend Tyler Shorter of Matinee Myths takes time to help me review these movies, and me and him have a great time laughing and telling jokes. We have a great show coming up. Incredibles 2 has been reviewed by us, and it will be the next thing that we release from Matinee Conversations. So if you have any movies that you guys want us to see and review and just to interact with you guys, please let us know. Well, guys, thank you guys once again so much for all that you do. Continue to download, subscribe, and share Culture and Conversations. And until next time, peace.
I'm out.